My name is Solomon Serwanja, and I'm the Executive Director of the African Institute for Investigative Journalism. I am happy to be leading the conversation today. We will certainly be engaging you as we continue a fully packed program for us to discuss government's response to the economy, how we are looking like. Let me bring in Richard Tugume here. Richard, you really in charge of innovation and research at the Uganda Agribusiness Alliance, and you bring in, you're now from that position of we are the last, the people who are affected most. What have you felt from your people in the agribusiness sector, and largely because everyone is focusing on working with agribusiness, improving our agriculture sector so that we can use it as an avenue to reduce inflation. What has been your experience, and what would you advise in the long and medium term to manage the situation at hand?
Thank you, Solomon. Quickly, I want to introduce the subject of Uganda Agribusiness Alliance. We are an umbrella body that hosts both national and international stakeholders in agribusiness, with the sole objective of creating the most conducive environment possible for the sector to thrive and achieve maximum potential. In summary, that's who we are. And in my submission today in regards to what the UA is doing and how we are feeling these effects, I'm going to submit from the perspective of what I do on a daily basis in terms of my profession. Because at the UAA, I'm a board member, and that's not my full-time work, but I am accredited to the UAA because of my actual full-time work. And that will give the perspective as to which angle I am bringing this discussion. So my full-time work is I am a fund manager of 3 foreign funds. One based out of the state of New Jersey called the Seagull Family Foundation, and that one is lending at levels between $10,000 to $100,000 to SMEs in the region. We operate in about 7 countries in the region. The second fund is called Yunus Social Business Foundation. It was founded by the gentleman called Muhammad Yunus, Nobel Peace Prize winner of 2006. And we are lending at between $150,000 and $500,000 USD to SMEs. And the third fund is called the Global Social Impact Investment Fund, based out of Madrid in Spain, that is lending between $500,000 and $1.5 million per SME in the wider region. Now, from where I sit, my problem with these policies that have been elaborated very clearly today is that principally when you hear comments about our economy is not like the UK, it is not like the US economy, the challenge with these policies is that these are not historically founded in our setting and realities. These policies were not designed with Uganda's economy in mind. When the framers of these policies were framing them, Uganda was not anything they understood or even considered in the first place. And that's why you hear, when you hear the middle class in the UK or the bankable portion in the UK is 90% plus, that is what they were designed for, which we are not. So my problem is that our elite class and policy framers have not done sufficient Ugandanizing of these policies to make them realistic for our context. That is where I'm having the problem. And I'm seeing it on the front lines of it, in the trenches of it. And I'll give an example. In these policies that I also studied in depth right from A level, they will tell you in these economies that there are 4 factors of production, 4 traditional factors of production, as an example. And they'll tell you it is land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. I'll tell you that in the economy called Uganda, at the state in which we are operating, there is a 5th and important factor of production that is not in this literature. And you know what it is? It's a factor called dishonesty. Literally, when in the journalism stories you keep raising about investigative journalism, and then you say there's this whole thing about adulteration of our products and things that are manufactured. That is a factor of production. You know, there's an entire value chain, there's an entire industry that has come to believe that every product cannot be taken to market in an ethical manner, both in quality and quantity. So your bag of cement that is meant to be 50 kilograms will be about 45 at best. It will have some ash in it at some times. You know, your kilo of meat can never be 1 kilo, it will be 850 grams. That is a factor of production. It was never in this consideration here. In these policies, when they were being done by the famous economists in all those developed economies, they were never a factor. They are a factor in this country. So, as just one example, I'll tell you that now coming to the realities of how this is affecting the real groundwork in this economy, is that when you pass a policy like this, without that fifth factor of production in Uganda is considered, what we are seeing on the front lines is that the rate of willful default that is deliberate by the borrower has increased. Why? Because now there's an excuse to default. When there was no excuse of saying, oh, the economy is very harsh, oh, people are not doing well, the guy who could not give that excuse was forced to comply, right? But now, because there is excuse, now he has a good reason to say, oh, but things are not working. You actually know, we're just out of COVID. Now even Ebola has come. You know, the war in Russia is going on. The bullets are still flying, so he can't pay you, even when he should be able to pay you. That is in our economic fabric here. So those realities for me are the problem, the Ugandanizing of the aspect. I'll give you another example. In as much as we talk about challenges like a lack of sufficient capital in the economy to lend out, a lack of employment for our youthful population, which is one of the highest in the world, there are challenges like unlendability. The borrower that is claiming there is no money to lend, or to borrow rather, how lendable are you? What value system do you espouse to qualify for that lending? That's a big question, big challenge in this country. Number two, on employment. How many people in this country are actually unemployable, even when he is given a job? That he does not have the discipline, he does not have the values, he does not have the work ethic for him to perform on that job. Those are the things in our economy that are not relevant from where these things are coming from, because they have since been solved a long time ago. So for me, I think that's where the problem is. I'll give you another example as well. Look at how we are copying and pasting some of these innovations coming out of the Western economies, like these online applications. Uber is a good example. I'm sure any of you in this room that has tried using the Uber app or service in this country, one of the most fascinating things is that when you apply for a ride and then they allocate you a driver, the first thing you get is a telephone call, having recognized that is your number. The driver will call you up and say, hey boss, where are you? Number two, where are you going? And you're wondering, but the app should have solved those problems for me. And so if I can wonder as a Ugandan, what about the foreigner who is used to how the Uber is working in the UK and is having those questions here? So for me, that is where the gaps are. We need to Ugandanize these things so that they can speak to the realities of our economy. And now talking about the actual substantive solutions, I'll leave one big question out for debate. If the argument, the principal argument for these policies is price stability, between a rock and a hard place and making two hard choices, which one is better? Between having a stable price with a population that has no money to even buy anything or most of the things at that stable price, or having an inflationary situation to some extent, but with some money in the pocket, at least to buy something at those inflated prices? Those are the sobering questions that would Ugandanize this debate and make it relevant for our economy. Thank you.
Interesting. Some love for Richard. Need I add anything, sir? I don't think so. Ugandalizing the fiscal and monetary policies to actually to fit our economic situation.
Mr. Tugume, I have listened to you on 2 occasions. This is the second one. And your concern is that the model that we use were designed for well-functioning markets. I agree with you. But if you cascade this model to developing countries like Uganda, and then ask yourself, why is it? Because what you are saying is that the structure, production function for advanced economies is not what is in Uganda. You talked about the factors of production, labor capital, entrepreneurship, and land. Land is in fixed supply, so you can't do much with land. Then you have capital and labor. And then what you call entrepreneurship, I know you went further than Econ 101, it's called total factor production or productivity, okay? And the issues of dishonesty, the issue of people borrowing and failing to pay is some sort of regulatory failure, which is expected in markets. Markets are always, they are market failures. And so you need a regulator to correct those failures. And that is what I term regulatory failures. And that is where the government should come through maybe the legal system to address it. For instance, right now, one of the reasons that we give for the high lending rates is because the contract enforcement is so weak. You have borrowed funds, time for paying you don't want to pay, and then the bank wants to recover their funds from you because you are defaulting using the right procedure. And then you run to a court and get an injunction. As we talk now, the amount of money locked in court injunctions just because of defaults is about 7 trillion. And that is where there is a regulatory failure. All those market failures that you are talking about that these models don't address are issues to do with regulatory failures. The issue of the informal sector, that is a regulatory failure. And if government could work out a way of addressing these issues, the model that we use would work perfectly.
My parting shot is that for me, the effectiveness of any of these macroeconomic policies is as good as 2 things. One is the value system and the caliber of the targeted population is one. Number 2 is the environment in which the policy and the target actually reside. And building on that, I want to give you the example that basic research will show you that the advanced economies we admire for having solved a lot of the compliance issues and driving a lot of the population into the middle class, they did achieve that feat by having the most churches and the most pastors and being the most religious. In fact, ironically, there is an inverse relationship between development and level of religiousness, just for the record. So it has nothing to do with being too religious and having too many churches. Where the challenge has been solved is from having a strong environment on 3 levels. One is on the moral angle, in which people have the same view about what is right and wrong. Number 2 is the issue of market response, in which non-compliance or malpractice is shunned and punished by the market. Number 3, and most importantly, is having strong laws and strong enforcement of those laws. It's on those 3 levels that these things have succeeded. And we are far from achieving them. We need to work towards it, and it will not happen without anyone doing something about it. Thank you.
So what Richard is trying to say is, what are you doing about it, right? Richard, thank you very much.
Let us not forget that even when we talk about the macroeconomic policies, when we talk about many other different policies that we have in this country, if only the world is honest. And I want to speak to the debate that was raging on the panel here between Bwana Jimmy and my brother Richard, where Richard was today introducing the fifth factor of production called dishonesty. Richard, allow me to quote you on this matter and address to all of us that if we as a human race do not wake up to be honest and also hold ourselves to account and accept to be held to account when we are going wrong in terms of our decisions, this planet, even all these policies that we are going to fight for it so hardly, it's not going to heal what we want for the generation that will come after us. So in whatever capacity that you are, let us not forget to continue to push the powers that be outside and in this country, so that we can continue to meet the commitment that we have put to ensure that we can save this planet from all the factors of climate change and others.